Microsoft DP-700 exam practice questions are available in the video for you to study. You need to ensure that usage of the data in the Amazon S3 bucket meets the technical requirements. What should you do? A. Create a workspace identity and enable high concurrency for the notebooks. B. Create a shortcut and ensure that caching is disabled for the workspace. C. Create a workspace identity and use the identity in a data pipeline. D. Create a shortcut and ensure that caching is enabled for the workspace. The answer is B. To ensure that the usage of the data in the Amazon S3 bucket meets the technical requirements, we must address two key points. Minimize egress costs associated with cross-cloud data access. Using a shortcut ensures that Fabric does not replicate the data from the S3 bucket into the Lakehouse but rather provides direct access to the data in its original location. This minimizes cross-cloud data transfer and avoids additional egress costs. Prevent saving a copy of the raw data in the Lakehouses. Disabling caching ensures that the raw data is not copied or persisted in the Fabric workspace. The data is accessed on demand directly from the Amazon S3 bucket. You need to populate the MAR1 data in the bronze layer. Which two types of activities should you include in the pipeline? Each correct answer presents part of the solution. Note: each correct selection is worth 1 point. A. For each. B. Copy data. C. Webhook. D. Stored procedure. The answer is AB. MAR1 has 7 entities, each accessible via a different API endpoint. A for each activity is required to iterate over these endpoints to fetch data from each one. It enables dynamic execution of API calls for each entity. The copy data activity is the primary mechanism to extract data from REST APIs and load it into the bronze layer in Delta format. It supports native connectors for REST APIs and Delta, minimizing development effort. You need to resolve the sales data issue. The solution must minimize the amount of data transferred. What should you do? A. Split the dataflow into 2 dataflows. B. Configure scheduled refresh for the dataflow. C. Configure incremental refresh for the dataflow. Set store rows from the past to 1 month. D. Configure incremental refresh for the dataflow. Set refresh rows from the past to 1 year. E. Configure incremental refresh for the dataflow. Set refresh rows from the past to 1 month. The answer is E. The sales data issue can be resolved by configuring incremental refresh for the dataflow. Incremental refresh allows for only the new or changed data to be processed, minimizing the amount of data transferred and improving performance. The solution specifies that data older than 1 month never changes, so setting the refresh period to 1 month is appropriate. This ensures that only the most recent month of data will be refreshed, reducing unnecessary data transfers. You have a Fabric workspace. You have semi-structured data. You need to read the data by using T-SQL, KQL, and Apache Spark. The data will only be written by using Spark. What should you use to store the data? A. A lakehouse. B. An event house. C. A data mart. D. A warehouse. The answer is A. A lakehouse is the best option for storing semi-structured data when you need to read it using T-SQL, KQL, and Apache Spark. A lakehouse combines the flexibility of a data lake, which can handle semi-structured and unstructured data, with the performance features of a data warehouse. It allows data to be written using Apache Spark and can be queried using different technologies such as T-SQL, for SQL-based querying, KQL, Custo query language for querying, and Apache Spark, for distributed processing. This solution is ideal when dealing with semi-structured data and requiring a versatile querying approach. You have a Fabric workspace that contains a warehouse named Warehouse 1. You have an on-premises Microsoft SQL Server database named Database 1 that is accessed by using an on-premises data gateway. You need to copy data from Database 1 to Warehouse 1. Which item should you use? A. A dataflow Gen 1 dataflow. B. A data pipeline. C. A KQL query set. D. A notebook. The answer is B. To copy data from an on-premises Microsoft SQL Server database, Database 1, to a warehouse, Warehouse 1, in Microsoft Fabric, the best option is to use a data pipeline. A data pipeline in Fabric allows for the orchestration of data movement, from source to destination, using connectors, transformations, and scheduled workflows. Since the data is being transferred from an on-premises database and requires the use of a data gateway, a data pipeline provides the appropriate framework to facilitate this data movement efficiently and reliably. You have a Fabric workspace that contains a warehouse named Warehouse 1. You have an on-premises Microsoft SQL Server database named Database 1 that is accessed by using an on-premises data gateway. You need to copy data from Database 1 to Warehouse 1. Which item should you use? A. An Apache Spark job definition. B. A data pipeline. C. A dataflow Gen 1 dataflow. D. An event stream. The answer is B. To copy data from an on-premises Microsoft SQL Server database, Database 1, to a warehouse, Warehouse 1, in Fabric, a data pipeline is the most appropriate tool. A data pipeline in Fabric is designed to move data between various data sources and destinations, including on-premises databases like SQL Server, and cloud-based storage like Fabric warehouses. The data pipeline can handle the connection through an on-premises data gateway, which is required to access on-premises data. This solution facilitates the orchestration of data movement and transformations if needed. You have a Fabric workspace named Workspace 1 that contains a notebook named Notebook 1. In Workspace 1, you create a new notebook named Notebook 2. You need to ensure that you can attach Notebook 2 to the same Apache Spark session as Notebook 1. What should you do? A. Enable high concurrency for notebooks. B. Enable dynamic allocation for the Spark pool. C. Change the runtime version. D. Increase the number of executors. The answer is A. To ensure that Notebook 2 can attach to the same Apache Spark session as Notebook 1, You need to enable high concurrency for notebooks. High concurrency allows multiple notebooks to share a Spark session, enabling them to run within the same Spark context and thus share resources like cached data, session state, and compute capabilities. This is particularly useful when you need notebooks to run in sequence or together while leveraging shared resources. You have a Fabric warehouse named DW1. DW1 contains a table that stores sales data and is used by multiple sales representatives. You plan to implement row-level security, RLS. You need to ensure that the sales representatives can see only their respective data. Which warehouse object do you require to implement RLS? AISTORED procedure. B. Constraint. C. Schema. D. Function. The answer is D. To implement row-level security, RLS, in a Fabric warehouse, you need to use a function that defines the security logic for filtering the rows of data based on the user's identity or role. This function can be used in conjunction with a security policy to control access to specific rows in a table. In the case of sales representatives, the function would define the filtering criteria, e.g., based on a column such as sales rep ID or sales rep name, ensuring that each representative can only see their respective data. You have a Fabric deployment pipeline that uses 3 workspaces named Dev, Test, and Prod. You need to deploy an event house as part of the deployment process. What should you use to add the event house to the deployment process? A. GitHub Actions. B. A deployment pipeline. C. An Azure DevOps pipeline. The answer is B. A deployment pipeline in Fabric is designed to automate the process of deploying assets, such as reports, datasets, event houses, and other objects, between environments like Dev, Test, and Prod. Since you need to deploy an event house as part of the deployment process, a deployment pipeline is the appropriate tool to move this asset through the different stages of your environment. You have a Fabric workspace named Workspace 1 that contains a warehouse named Warehouse 1. You plan to deploy Warehouse 1 to a new workspace named Workspace 2. As part of the deployment process, you need to verify whether Warehouse 1 contains invalid references. The solution must minimize development effort. What should you use? A. A database project. B. A deployment pipeline. C. A Python script. D. A T-SQL script. The answer is C. A deployment pipeline in Fabric allows you to deploy assets like warehouses, datasets, and reports between different workspaces, such as from Workspace 1 to Workspace 2. One of the key features of a deployment pipeline is the ability to check for invalid references before deployment. This can help identify issues with assets, such as broken links or dependencies, ensuring the deployment is successful without introducing errors. This is the most efficient way to verify references and manage the deployment with minimal development effort.